Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity. Back in the 70s when we were kids, or at least when I was a teenager, rock and roll bands came and went. The great ones had staying power, the bad ones didn't, or the not so great ones didn't. But there was this other class of artists who were great, but for whatever reason, things did not line up and they didn't get the recognition that they deserved. And one such band was a great band out of LA called the Hollywood Stars. And they came out with a few albums and then they kind of went away and they've reconstituted themselves. They're back into playing position and have come out with a brand new album called Starstruck. You see the album cover back behind me. And so anyway, I heard the album. I thought, heck yeah, I want to talk to these guys. And so I got to talk to Scott Ferris and Terry Ray, and they're the two remaining original members of the band. And what a fun time we had talking. We got to talk about the changes that they've seen in the music business and how fun it was for them to put this album together. It's a great album. I encourage you to order the album. You'll hear how to order it at the tail end of this interview. And I think when you hear this interview, you're gonna be a fan for the rest of your life because they're that great, they're that fun, super nice guys to talk to. So if you don't mind though, when you listen to this, would you hit like and would you hit subscribe? It won't cost you a dime, but it helps us out a lot. And go to their website, go to their Facebook pages and Instagram and hit subscribe so you can find out if they're going to come to a town near you. So without any further ado, here is my first interview with Scott Ferris and Terry Ray of the Hollywood Stars. Until next time, this is Randy Patterson with Boomerocity. Take care. You guys are on opposite coast, and I'm going to jump ahead on something. How do you guys make a band work being on an opposite coast like this? I mean, I know a lot of bands do it, but how do you guys make it work?
It's an ongoing project, isn't it, Scott? We just check each other's schedules a lot.
But the band rehearses without me, and then I come. For example, I'm flying out tomorrow, and we'll rehearse Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this coming week. Then I'll come back here. Then I come out again in mid-June, rehearse a couple times with the band. Then we play the Viper Room. Then I come back here. So I do a lot of flights back and forth.
Wow. Well, where do you normally connect?
Well, I fly from New York to LA, so.
Oh, direct. So, okay.
Yeah.
That's better. Well, man,
rehearsal.
Yeah. And jet lag cannot help much on situations like that either. That's why you have the gaps in between.
Well, yeah. Yeah, for me, when I get there tomorrow, rehearsal starts at 7, but that'll be like 10 my time. So it'll be pretty much like nightclub time,
There you go. Well, man, I was intrigued by y'all's story. And, when Randy sent me the information on it, I was listening to you. He asked me if I'd be interested in talking to you guys. Oh, heck yeah, man. I love the sound and the pedigree you two have, as well as your band members and who all they've played with and everything. Tell viewers the story, your elevator speech about the Hollywood Stars, who you are. I've got a lot of viewers and listeners and readers out west. I grew up in Phoenix, so a lot of friends out there. So there's a lot of people, LA, all that kind of. I'm dialing in from the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee, and so
okay.
There's a lot of scatter here, worldwide viewers and that type of thing. So tell everybody the Hollywood Stars story, and because I find it intriguing.
Hey Terry, why don't we do this in pieces? Terry's the one thread through every version of the Hollywood Stars.
Okay.
He was the original drummer. He's been the only. I mean, we had 2 drummers at one time, but he's been on every recording, so he's been there since the beginning. So Kim Fowley came up to me one night at Rodney Bingenheimer's and said, "I want you to be the lead singer of this new band I'm putting together, the Hollywood Stars." Meanwhile, I think maybe you can fill in here, Terry, that he'd already reached out to you and Ruben about the same thing.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
Okay, so we started auditioning. Basically, we were just auditioning for a bass player. So we found Gary Van Dyke, and we started to rehearse. And after a couple of rehearsals, Kim brought in Mark Anthony and said, "This guy is a great songwriter. he can sing, play guitar, and that's how the band was born. We made some, in January, February, we swapped out a bass player, Brendan Kevin Barnhill. We got signed to Columbia Records. We made an album. We played all over Southern California. We went to Colorado and played. And but unfortunately, we got dropped by the label, and our last gig in that original format was November of '74.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had been dropped by the label. Whoa! So the band broke up, and so I left. Everybody left, and I think Terry, you can pick up the story from there.
That's it. There was about a year or so that Ruben and I were playing with different bands during that period. The Blue Cheer thing happened, and then eventually I heard from Ruben that we were going to try it again, but Mark wanted to try it with Bobby playing drums alongside me. So I had to get used to that idea, and so we came together and rehearsed, and we happened to click pretty well together, playing the same riff, or maybe, playing against each other. I would play upbeat stuff, he'd play downbeat stuff, and sort of come up with something different for a live show. And so we just went from there. It came together, and with different people commenting on what we should do, and different experiences making up different formats for us to play in, and the material we were writing changed a lot. Mark went through this romantic period where he was writing a lot of love songs all of a sudden, but yeah, so that eventually came out, and some of the songs that we had of course written and recorded with Scott. He now had placed with KISS and Alice Cooper, and so we had sort of something to lean on, something that gave us a little bit of that validity to the other labels that were looking at us, saying, "This is, we have songs that actually work with other bands, so it can work with us and with you," saying to the labels, of course. And then eventually, Aerosmith got involved, and Clyde Davis signed us, and it was the problem, of course, was Clyde had his own view of what we should be, and that turned out to be sort of an unusual combination of ideas with our sort of funky, basic rock track with a bunch of violins and cellos over the top of it. We weren't bred, so we were more like the Ramones, but and they're throwing violins on it, So that album, we appreciate it more now than we did at the time. But at the time, it was like, well, what is this? It's not really who we are. So it was a problem for all of us to try to duplicate what they had done live. Even though we went on the road, going out with the KINKS, we were trying to play those songs, and if anybody had heard them, if we were lucky enough to have anybody hear them, which is another story. The modern audiences were polite. A lot of them weren't. A lot of them like, who the hell are you guys? The KINKS. We want to just see the KINKS. That's it. And so it was tough to duplicate the sounds that we had recorded, and so it became a little bit of an irritation to everybody. And I was like, well, why did this happen? We had recorded the demo tape with became Sound City later on that we thought should be the album. But Clive said, no, we're going to start from the beginning and do the whole thing over again the way I want to do it. And so it was another problem for the band to deal with. Scott,
hey, Terry, let me interrupt just to recap for a second to Randy. So the confusing story of the Hollywood's discography. So this album, the Arista one, the self-titled Hollywood Stars album, was the third album to be recorded, but the first album to be released.
Wow.
Then later, we released this on Last Summer Records. Okay. So this is actually the first album to be recorded, but the second album to be released. And then finally, Then finally,
I'm getting woozy
The-
here.
the second album to be
You should have
recorded was
listened.
the third album to be released, Sound City. So that's the confusing story of our early discography.
Yes.
Wow.
Now, Terry, why don't you tell them what happened? The band broke up, and then I can sort of pick up how we got back together and all that.
Sure. It was a sad thing because we had great management, and we were just coming up on our fabulous return from the KINKS tour, and I thought everything was happening for the band. We had an office down in Beverly Hills, and all of a sudden, Mark shows up with this mind-blowing. I'm going to leave the band, guys, and I'm going to go on a solo trip, and good luck to you fellas. Thanks for everything. And we're going, what? So, we went from money in the bank and everything is all together and ready to go for another album to nothing. When you lose your lead singer, lead writer, the labels kind of run with that guy, and all of a sudden they got cold feet. So there wasn't any money to be had, and we were being supported by the label at that point. So the whole thing just fell apart, and we were all on the street now looking for a new gig.
Wow.
So yeah. So Randy, we'll continue on here. It's a long
great.
and winding road to get to Starstruck.
Yeah,
So
keep going.
many years went by. I maintained a connection with Ruben, who was original lead guitar player, who played on all three of those albums. And one day he says, "Oh, you got to call Terry," who I hadn't talked to in nearly 40 years, because I'm living on the East Coast now. He says, "Some guy's interested in our Columbia album, blah blah blah." So I called Terry, and Terry, I think you were in a chat room with about Flamin' Groovies.
It was kind of funny. Because I was just listening to this story. There's always confusion about the two versions of Shake Some Action that are out there. And I was listening to, what's his name?
Robin Will?
Was that? Robin, yeah. Yeah, Robin Wills. And so he was saying, he was talking to this kid and was saying, yeah, this guy, the original drummer played on the demo. And I just chimed in. I said, hey, actually it was Terry from the Hollywood Stars that played that. And then so Robin goes, oh yeah, that's right. That was Terry. Thanks a lot. And I go, sure, no problem. And I signed my name Terry. And he goes, is this Terry from the Hollywood Stars? And I go, yeah. So he goes, oh my God. He goes, thanks for coming on. He says, do you guys have any tape? Right up the bat, he asked me, do you guys have any tapes, old tapes of the Hollywood Stars? And I said, yeah, we definitely do. And then the next thing you know, we hooked up together with all the other guys in the band, and this was the result, which Scott is showing you up there. It's a fold-down album, which has pictures inside and the whole thing showing, the history of the band. And that all came from a fluke podcast that I was listening to.
And I happen to have a rough mix from the Columbia album on quarter-inch tape. And I reluctantly sent it off to England, just hoping this wasn't a scam or some weird thing.
Mm.
And then that album came out, and it was sold half in Europe, half here. And after 6 months, we got all the rights back. And so, I don't know, somewhere along the line, I put the album up on all the platforms. And I don't know, maybe Terry, it was your idea to do a music video. So went out to LA, my son and his girlfriend, now wife, produced and directed this video for King of the Nighttime World, which you can find on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so that was like, okay, great, promoted the album and whatnot. And then, time drifted along, and I was out in LA in 2018. And I don't know, I think Terry said, hey, Michael Rumans, Ruben, and I want to talk to you. Let's meet at the Rainbow. Of course, the Rainbow. It's central to the story of the Hollywood Stars. A whiskey go-go on the Rainbow. So we went, we had some food, and we chatted. And then Michael says, so do you think you could make it work? We get the band back together, and we play some gigs. And I thought, well, let's give it a try. So we came up with this plan. The band would rehearse. I would rehearse. What we did, I would rehearse at home. And so we just did songs. We just rehearsed songs that we'd recorded, and we pretty much did them exactly as the recordings. So I could sit at home, play the recording, sing along, and then show up, and then we'd play, we'd tweak a little bit, and that's how we did it in the beginning. And it was not easy. I mean, we played our first gig at Radio Free Hollywood in November of 2018. And I don't know, we did like 5 songs or something, and it was a rush. Somebody from the audience yelled, "Play Shine Like a Radio." And I'm like, see, I told you people love that song. So that inspired us to do more gigs, and we did a few, and then we played the Whiskey in July of that year. And the reason I'm turning over here is an album came out of that, Live on the Sunset Strip, which we did with Berger. But before that, we got a deal with Berger to put out the Sound City on CD. So we had that come out. And but before the live album could come out, and now we're entering into COVID times, Berger went under. Not because of COVID, they had their other problems, and they basically disappeared overnight.
Wow.
And so we were stuck with these CDs for Live on the Sunset Strip. We ended up getting a record deal with an Australian label, Golden Robot, and they put it out digitally, and we kept the CDs, and so we sell the CDs ourselves. And now Rumbar, who's our label for our newest album, Starstruck, which I don't even have to show because you got a million images
And one
behind
right
you
here in
back
my
there.
hand. So
Yeah, there you go.
I want in on this act too, you know. So,
By the way, I should have figured out how to do the background like you did instead of my guitars back there. But
Yeah,
I
that's
really
pretty
appreciate the
I'll
advertisement.
send it to you. You can have it. It's an easy thing to do. So
Okay, great. So in 2023, Ruben and Ches left the band, and first George Keller joined the band. He knew Michael. Michael is kind of like a central hub in this thing. He got us Berger. He got us Randy Haker, our publicist. You know, he had the idea for the Sound City album, and he's kind of intertwined a lot of stuff. In fact, he and I actually played the same gig in 1967 or 66, I can't remember which, at the Hullabaloo Club with the
Wow.
Yellow Pages. We only discovered this by accident years later, and Terry actually might have also been
We
at
all
that
three
gig.
might have been playing that day. You didn't know each other.
Yeah. So Palace Guard, Yellow Pages, and my band, which was called Happiness.
wow.
All 3 of us might have played together on that night. But anyway, back to things at hand. So we got George Keller. He played in the Sloths with Michael, so that's how we knew him. And Lauren Bolinar, our manager, he played with the band a little bit because we decided we were going to do some recordings. We got some songs together, and so we went into Kit and Robot Studios and recorded half a dozen songs with Lauren playing guitar, along with George, Terry, Michael, myself. And then we got Jeff Gerard, which was an amazing find. You know, founder of the Motel, played with Tom Petty, great guy, very creative, good guitarist, and all that. So that's where we went and recorded the second half of Starstruck. We got some stuff, you know, some other songs together. We were originally going to do like 9 songs and then keep 4 for something else. And I didn't think 9 songs was the right amount. I thought we should do 10. And I thought, well, what can we do with the other songs? And finally, we all just said, well, I can't pick a song to get rid of, you know, and put off to another release. So let's just put them all out there. So that's what we did. So you got 13 songs on there instead of 9 or 10.
Makes it a musical bargain when you break it down to price per song, right?
Yes.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody do the math. You know,
That's
$10
right.
divided by 13 is a lot less than $10 divided by 10 or 9. So yeah.
Well, by day,
Plus, there's 2 alternate versions on there too. There's an
That's what I
extended
saw.
version
Yeah.
of Revenge, and then Can't Do It Right. George had this kind of cool, funky guitar thing that he used to play on an acoustic guitar. And so it's about 30 seconds that we put on the front end of Can't Do It Right. And That's the version my wife loves. She goes, well, you should put that on the album. And I said, well, it is. It's on the CD, but it's just not on the single version. So anyway, that pretty much brings you up to date. We're with Rumbar Records. You probably know Lou. He's an awesome guy. And we're putting a vinyl out on Sue Records, probably about the 1st of September. And we have 2 singles out. Taxi Driver and Can't Do It Right just came out Friday. In fact, it didn't hit the platform till about midnight on Friday, which I'm not sure why that was. But anyway, that's where we are. And Starstruck coming out June 14th. We're playing the Viper Room to celebrate it on June 15th. And yeah.
Cool. Well, you guys have had ups and downs and that kind of thing, but what, between when you first started in the 70s to getting Starstruck together now and working all that, there had to be some reflection of, wow, this, so many changes. You're going from tape to, digital, different kinds of soundboards back in the 70s to, software driven recording today. You don't have to cut tape like you used to, all that kind of stuff. What has been the biggest changes you've seen and reflected on as you worked on Starstruck when you look back over all the other albums you guys worked on?
Holy cow.
Well, you want to take a shot first, Terry, and then I'll give you my impression.
Well, it just seemed a lot easier to do it. And, recording back in the day was such a big production. It seemed like it took forever, right? Weeks to get stuff done. And you spend hours figuring out parts and laying them down and then maybe going back and having to do the track again and again and that kind of thing. Whereas now, they can just punch and click and start over or take a piece out that you don't like, all that stuff. So it definitely, made it much easier to record, in my opinion. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'll 100% agree with that. I mean, we went into Kitten Robot and we didn't need, some big name producer. We didn't need a record label. We could do it pretty much all ourselves. And instead of spending $100,000, which would cost way over $1 million, not in today's dollars, to record something, for a very modest amount of money, something that was an affordable amount of money, you can go in and record an entire album and it sounds great. We, Paul Rossler and the band and Lauren pretty much produced this thing. And like I said, we didn't need a label and we could go get a label and get promotion out there and everything. We just did. I mean, the old days, Terry, I'm sure you agree with this. It was like, oh my God, just get me a record deal. Please get me a record deal. Then you get a record deal and then you realize, oh, they may not put the album out. Then it's like, okay, well, let's just get the album out. And it's like, well, but is anybody playing this on the radio? Is it actually in the stores? And on and on and on. Now you're in control of your own destiny. You're not tied down for years. You can just move and it's so flexible. The other thing is, for me, I appreciate it now way more than I did back then when it was a lot harder. I was a young guy. Terry was the old man of the band. He was all of 25 or 24, And, so everybody was young, inexperienced, high expectations. We just figured, oh man, this can be easy now. We're just going to have one thing after another. We've made it. And I did, playing live, I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. I was like, oh, we got to play that club. We don't like that club or whatever, now it's like, oh yeah, we'll play. We love playing. At least I do. I get a huge charge out of playing live, and recording is so much easier. As Terry said, you can go through and then say, okay, that one beat is a little bit off. Scott, you came in a little too early. Well, we'll just slide it over.
Move it over, yeah.
A little teeny bit, and all of a sudden it's perfect, as opposed to, okay, do it again, do it again, do it again. And you get sick of playing the stuff and singing the stuff when you're in the studio and have to do it over and over and over again. This was, a few takes each song, punch in here and there, very few overdubs. That's a major difference.
Did
Yeah,
any
you
of
got the
this?
spontaneous track.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you guys look back and think, crap, if we had this back then, we would have done this, that, or the other different on any of the other albums?
Probably so. Yeah, we probably would have done it ourselves.
Yeah,
Right.
well, that's the thing is that because the distribution and the recording, everything is so different. It's like, gosh, I wish it was this easy back then.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't need all that other stuff. Although when you're 20 something, we probably would have fought like dogs in the studio, and it might have been a whole different. I don't know.
Well, you get a deal too, and you get all this money coming your way. You're kind of obliged to go along with what those guys are telling you, and what they picture you, and your image, your sound is coming from them now, not from you. And since
That's
they're paying the bills, you're kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe you're right, and you go along with these things.
That's a
the best
fantastic
idea.
point. We only have one master, and that's us. Although Lauren's kind of pushy, but it's a good thing.
I know I've heard a lot of stories from other bands, other artists, when, they stories similar to yours, where, get an album, hey, we're into money now. And then all of a sudden you start finding out, or they started finding out, they owed the label money. Did you guys run into that at all on those other albums?
Yes. I'm sure we owed money, a lot more money than we made, because there's always some problem that arises at the very end. And like we have to run and get our drum sets from our rehearsal studio before they come and grab them and take them away. They would take whatever stuff they'd given us away to sort of repay for all the money they had spent up to that point. So it was always a political battle at that point with the label.
Well, I know if you talk to our two managers back then, Sepp Donahauer and Denny Bruce, both of them will say what ended the Hollywood Stars is we ran out of money.
Mhm.
We would have shopped you to another label. But we'd already spent so much money. Those two guys were, put a lot of their own money into it and didn't get any back. And to Terry's point, I had 2 Ovation guitars in my apartment, and one of their guys showed up and said, "Oh, we're doing a recording session tomorrow. We need those so we can tune them up and do this." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, that's the last time I saw those guitars."
Oh, wow.
Right.
I was later on, I was in a band Hero. We did 2 albums, and I think one of them might have actually made money or broke even, because I somewhere around here I have a check stub from a check I got from I think it was from 20th Century for like $87 or something. So
Yeah, right. That sounds right.
and I can tell you the record deal we had with Columbia, I think it was $88,000. That's 1974 money.
A lot of money.
And we ran out of that, so.
I think people today still, and it amuses me that, there's still people who think you get it's just like you were saying, Scott, about, you get the label or the record deal, and then there's, there's tiers of this. People think you sign on that dotted line, you can go charter a jet, and where's my limo, that kind of thing. And I think still to this day, despite all the information, all the books that tell all the stories, people still think they still have that old 60s, 70s mentality of, you're, as they say here in the South, you're going to be in high cotton, and that's your work just began, really, is when it comes down to, But,
you got to work the social media like mad. You get nothing. Where you make money is sync licensing and merchandise. And if you're lucky enough to be able to make a few dollars playing, but it costs a band money to go play, and none of the clubs want to pay you any money.
Yep.
They say you sell your own tickets, you do your own promotion, and you get to keep all that. It's like, well, okay, we're taking all the risk. And it used to be the clubs took a risk. They'd hire bands, and if people didn't show up, they took a loss. Now, all these clubs pretty much have a guarantee of how much money they're going to make, and the bands are the ones that take the risks and make all the effort. And people forget too. Think, oh, well, you want this much money to play live. It's like, yeah, but you don't understand how much money we spent rehearsing.
Yeah.
You know, so
Right.
unless we're playing like constantly, it's very expensive for a band. So that makes it tough. And then like social media, I generally handle our Facebook account. Terry generally handles Instagram, but there's so much to do. We're like babies at this. And then you have then streaming services. We played with a group, and the drummer of the band said, "Buy our CD. We're selling it for $15. That's like 2 million streams on Spotify." It isn't exactly right, but Spotify basically, depending on who you are and how many spins you have or streams, you get between 0.3 and 0.5 cents per play. So, for example, Taxi Driver's gotten over 20,000 streams. That's like $60.
Yeah.
So unless you are getting millions of streams, you're not making any money there either. So,
Yep. You have to own the whole means of production from soup to nuts. I mentioned before you got on the call, Terry, that I was saying to Scott about, we were talking about Joe Bonamassa, and I mean, I think he's got this thing figured out. He owns it all from beginning to end, and he's only got, I mean, he's running the whole, his organization's running the whole enchilada, and I think that's the way the labels are, what labels are anymore, is forcing it. And now with AI and all these catalogs being bought, I'm kind of wondering where music's going. I mean, we'll probably be around long enough to enjoy some semblance of what we were used to, but kids and grandkids they won't know what the music industry was by the time they get done with it,
It's not the
sad.
same. Were you a 60s kind of a guy? Were you around when that was all happening?
Me, barely. I mean, I'm 64, so I was more of a 70s,
Yeah.
listener. My first concert was Elvis, though, and I got to
Wow.
talk to Colonel Parker there, so I say he
Wow.
was my first interview. So
Wow.
wow.
I was up 13 years old or something, but
The
but
street scene back then was so much better. People on the street, the cool, hip-looking kids that were on the street, the creative types that were all over the place, and it was like a Renaissance period. You're just walking through a dreamland, and back in those days, of course, everybody was high too. But
that's true.
aside from that, it was it was a beautiful thing. What you saw,
Yeah, as they say,
on all
if
levels.
you remember the 60s, you didn't live.
We weren't there.
But, yeah, but like he was talking about the street scene. There were in Hollywood, there were so many venues. Pandora's Box, the Starwood, the Rainbow, the Whiskey, the Roxy, not the Rainbow, but the Roxy,
Experience
and
was that openly?
I mean, it was just some of these came and went. Filthy McNasty's. I mean, there was a ton of clubs. I'm forgetting the Troubadour, which is still there, but you could walk to any one of these places, practically speaking. And so people were on the street going in and out of clubs. It was fantastic.
What was the biggest surprise for you guys putting Starstruck together? I keep wanting to say Starbucks. I'm surprised I haven't said it yet, but Starstruck.
I'll have a Starbucks. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have that much success.
There
People
you
in
go.
the States,
That's right.
Starstruck, Starbucks,
Highly
whatever.
caffeinated career here. So
You get a cup of coffee with each album you buy.
that's right. But what was the biggest surprise for you guys putting this album together?
Well, one, how fast we did it.
Yeah.
We recorded 6 tracks, including all the overdubs, except maybe a couple of percussion things, in 4 days.
Wow.
Starting at like 5 o'clock on a Friday, going through, we'd start at like noon every day after that through Monday. And then we did 7 songs in 4 days, like a couple of months later. So I think how fast we did it shocked everybody. I know Terry was like, "Oh, we're never going to get 6 songs done in 4 days."
Right.
But we did. And part of it's the amount of rehearsal we did. Part of it is we just all enjoyed playing together. And it just went really fast. I mean, it was, Paul Rossler was stunned. I think Lauren always believed we could do it. I believed we could do it. And, I did all the vocals in one day. So
Wow.
all my vocals, it just, so I'm sitting up there. I had to, okay, here's the order we're going to do it in, because after I sing this song, I won't have any voice left. So I got to, this song I used to warm up, and then I hit a peak, and then, so we had to strategize about a lot of this stuff, but we didn't put layer upon layer upon layer of stuff. It's almost a live album.
Well, that's
When you
how
say,
it comes
Terry?
across to me, as being pretty much live. I don't profess to have the ear you guys must have, but I mean, it sounds like you guys are all in the room and just, kicking it out of the park. It
Well,
was.
we
I loved
were.
it.
So I would have a vocal, not the final vocal. I'd be on a mic, and George would be here, and Jeff would be here, and Mike would be here, and Paul Rossler's here, and Lauren's sitting over here, and Terry's in a booth by himself facing us with a glass thing.
Mhm.
And so we're as close to being live as you can get. And we just didn't do layer upon layer of stuff. One takeaway from me from this album was the fewer things you put on, the bigger it sounds.
Yeah.
Because you've got to every time you add something, you got to take away from everything else.
Yeah.
And pretty soon it sounds mushy, not big. Everything's separated and sounds like you're really there. And I don't know. That's definitely a takeaway from this thing for me.
Yeah, that's great to actually hear what the finished product is, because you never know exactly what's going to happen. And when we were doing the photo shoot that time, when they were playing it in the background, I said, hey, that's a pretty neat album. It's the first time I'd heard all the songs next to each other and just sort of in the background, and you sort of got the feel for how other people maybe are listening to it. And it was pretty impressive to hear it like that. I said, yeah, that was a good thing. I think we did a good thing.
What I know you have a couple singles out, but between each of you, answer this if you don't mind. Is
And we'll
There's
listen to Terry's answer.
there's I don't ask what's favorite songs, because as I always say, it's like picking a favorite child, and we're not supposed to do that. So what song would each of you point to as the calling card for the album, saying, hey, if you guys love this song, you're really going to dig the rest of the album?
Good question.
Wow. I'm going to Terry, you answer that first. Well, I think of an answer.
Well, we're sort of just, I don't know. Everybody likes their own material, especially well, and we're glad that the songs that we wrote came out well. But I like Mike's stuff. I like Sleeping Giant. I think is a far out song, and Bad Bad Man with Scott's song. I love those two, especially. I think out of the bunch. As far as that, because it's kind of unusual.
Yeah.
Now, see, you asked me, I'll answer almost more about, you asked me what's emblematic or what sounds more like the rest of the tracks. And if you take, these are I don't want to say outliers, because I'm going to name several songs, like Haunted, I Had a Girlfriend, Am I Right or Wrong? I'm trying to think of another one. They're kind of over here. And then there's sort of a little more core sounding things like Taxi Driver, Can't Do It Right, or singles, Save Me.
That's one I agree to.
This Merry-Go-Round, those are Terry songs. And then you've got, like George's song, Walking with an Angel is completely different.
Yeah.
We did, I know I'm going to leave some songs out. A big production number of Shortage of Love.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That we all love that song, love to play it live.
Yeah.
And then we remade a completely new version of the Motels, Total Control. And for me, I love to sing that song. It took me a long time to learn it, but I love singing that song. So I might say, Total Control. But I believe there's such a variety, and yet it doesn't sound like 8 different bands or 5 different bands. It sounds like the same band.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's a tough question to answer.
Yeah, that is tough.
Well, that's a good sign, because it also shows depth of the record and of potential set list that you guys would have live.
Yes.
What I know the album's not officially out yet, but obviously Goofballs Like Me and family and friends have heard the album. What kind of reception, what kind of feedback are you guys getting?
Well, I'll take that one.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I haven't got mine
for
yet.
one, for example, my wife does not like Taxi Driver. My niece, on the other hand, who's 50 something, that's her favorite song. A bunch of people like Can't Do It Right. But my wife also likes your songs, Terry, better than my songs.
Which
Like,
one?
like Save Me in This Merry-Go-Round.
Oh,
You know, so different people have different favorites, and sometimes it hurts my feelings. You know, it's like, oh, mine isn't your favorite. You know,
Give me that
but
CD.
you know, listen. I hate to say it. I like everything. If I didn't, I would have said, hey, let's drop a few songs and worry about it later, which was my first thought, but I couldn't pick them. Now we had to pick a couple of songs that didn't make it on vinyl because we had too many minutes
Right.
for a vinyl. So there are two songs missing, and the reasons for picking them are obscure. Total Control and a Haunted, and the two extended versions, they are not on the vinyl. You can only get those on the CD. But that we did have to kind
I'm
of
in love for
put
that.
two children up for adoption. You know?
Yeah.
So what's on the agenda now that you have the album coming out? What do you guys got on the books to do once that is released?
Yes.
Well, the Viper Room on June 15th is obvious. We had hoped to do a little mini East Coast tour. Having a little problem getting that set up. Just a logistical thing.
And
I know
right?
Lauren is looking forward to us early next year going to Europe.
Ah,
We have a lot of airplay in Great Britain and a lot of airplay in Spain, believe it or not. There's a radio station in Spain that plays our song, plays Taxi like 5 or 10 times a day.
wow.
Yeah. So, we had a Spanish magazine do a great review of the album. You know, like they're like, hey, this is the best classic rock sounding thing you're going to hear for years, you know, kind of thing. So we're just trying to sort of figure out what the playing next steps would be. But we do have the Viper Room to celebrate the release of this. And I wouldn't be surprised if we work in a whiskey gig in there and some other local LA venues between now and the end of the year. But we don't have a lot on the books right now. We are playing, I can't remember where it is, September 6th, somewhere in LA.
In Orange County.
But I can't. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we got the video. We're going to do another video, right? So that should be fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I hope you guys do get some road time. And if you do, I mean, if you're going to do the East Coast thing, maybe you can peel away and get a little close to the Smoky Mountains. You know, there's Knoxville, there's Chattanooga. You know, if you go to Nashville, I can make the drive over there. It's not a big deal. But it would be great to see you guys perform. I love the album. That's the only reason why I wanted to talk to you is because I love the album. So I don't like wasting my time just like you guys don't. So this is I love the album. I'm sharing it with friends as far as to start looking out for it. I'm going to try to time the release of this interview for around the week or so that the album drops. And I'm not Rolling Stone magazine, thank God, but I have my niche of viewers and readers and followers around the world, and it's respectable and always growing. So I hope I'm helping you guys.
Thank you.
With this. And
yeah, thank you, Eddie.
I would love to get the word that you guys have another album coming out and that we get to talk again about it.
That's
so
right.
that would
well, we definitely. When that time happens, we definitely will. And there are no fans we don't want. You know what I mean? So you're reaching an audience that we haven't reached, you know. And by the way, anybody listening to this, follow us on Facebook.
Yeah.
It matters to people how many followers you have, which is kind of crazy.
And it doesn't cost them anything. Just hit follow,
just a
hit
click.
Like. Yeah.
Right. You know, the worst that happens is you get some notifications of some posts. And we don't post tons and tons of stuff. We try to be a little disciplined about it. so it
Yeah.
isn't flooded with a bunch of home videos and stuff.
Yeah. Or memes. Yes.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
having a steak somewhere.
Yeah.
right.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to send this backdrop to Randy so he can shoot it over to you guys. Feel free to use
Perfect.
it. If you'd like for me to change it up, it's simple for me to do. But as I tell artists, if I'm not talking to you guys, nobody's going to want to listen to what I have to say. So, it's all about you guys. And so every backdrop's different. And I want people to get that image in their mind so they can know where to look for it. And where can they look for this album when it drops? Where would you like for them to go to get it and to listen to it, buy it, whatever?
Well,
On our site.
you'll be able to buy the CD at Bandcamp, Rumbar Records. All our entire digital discography, any individual track or albums, you can buy on our Bandcamp site page. So those are the places to buy it. Of course, you can buy it.
Spotify.
CD you can only buy from Rumbar, but digital you could buy from iTunes or whatever, Apple Music, Amazon Music, places like that. But it's a lot better if you buy it from us on Bandcamp.
And support the bands. That's it.
Exactly.
That's right. So, well, guys, thanks for taking the time on a weekend that you may otherwise be resting. I appreciate it. And it was a fun interview, and I look forward to talking to you guys again down the road.
Thank you, Randy. It's
Awesome.
been great.
All right. Take care.
Thanks,
Have
Randy.
a great weekend.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.